What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis back with the rundown. We're going to talk about every single team in the NBA, and I'm going to give you my quick analysis on every team. I don't know how long this video going to be. I don't know how long it's going to take, but the people that want to watch it, going to watch it. However long they want to watch it, however much they want to watch it. Um, so here we go. Usually, I start off with the East first. So Miami Heat, 44-23 at the recording of this video. This season has been crazy, like most of us have seen. Probably one of the stupidest, most idiotic, and dumbest seasons in NBA history. But the Miami Heat, like a lot of teams, they played the cards they was dealt. They got off to a rocky start. A lot of injuries, COVID, stupidity, idiocracy going on with every team. But the Heat find themselves number one right now through all the bull, and you got to give them credit for that. Jimmy missed a significant amount of time the first 2 months, and he has been fine when healthy. Kyle Lowry was supposed to be a big addition. He missed a whole lot of time this year, and they've been fine. Tyler Hero has been hot and cold the previous seasons, has been a little bit more steady this year, coming off the bench and starting throughout the season. Their role players has been interchanging, just like a lot of other teams this year, and it's been enough. Bam hasn't been great or dominant for a long stretch of time this season, but he has shown that, when he plays, he still is a solid, complimentary player and understands the system and plays hard and rebounds well. And just a pretty good piece for this team and what they try to do with the talent that they have. Duncan Robinson has been cold for majority of the year, but, you know, he's still capable of making shots when they're open. You only need a couple shots and a couple of things to go down throughout a run to win a game, to win a series. You don't need everybody playing their best or the most amazing. You just need to win game by game in the best of four, best of seven. The best of seven, whoever wins the fourth game wins the series, and you go on to the next one. So the Heat has been, for the most part, their nucleus has been together. Jimmy, Tyler, Duncan Robinson, Bam, Eric Spoelstra, and his coaching staff has been, pretty much the same too. So they'll be fine for the most part. I didn't see them number one at this point, but it's a long season. It happens, and reality is they number one now. The Bucks has been up and down throughout the season. They find themselves number two right now. Drew Holiday's healthy for a long period of time with Middleton and Giannis. The role players have changed, even with the Bucks, like every other team for the most part this season. And Giannis has been in the MVP conversation, the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, been dominant like Giannis has been for the last couple years. And, this is the Bucks. We kind of used to them at this point the last couple years, being at the top of the East, being one of the best teams in the regular season. They have everything, especially when they're healthy, to win games against the good, the bad, and ugly throughout the NBA season. They just want to be healthy at the right time like every other team, so that way they can make a run and see if they can win a title. The Sixers got off to a great start when they got James Harden, but they have lost a couple games since. They 7-3. Not going to really go crazy. I still think they look good. Maxey looked good for pretty much the whole season. Embiid has been dominant just like last year. I like him a little bit more this year than last year. James Harden was he was an all-star caliber player for the Nets and pretty much been virtually the same to me for the Sixers. Their role players been inconsistent, a little spotty shooting. They still defend decent enough. They still need a little bit more time. They haven't even played 20 games together. Guys been in and out the lineup even throughout these last 2 months that the trade was made, when the season is over, which will be in April. So they got time to figure it out in this 2 month stretch since the trade deadline. And we'll see whatever happens with them um, throughout this next week and throughout this next month, I should say, and we'll see what the Sixers, matchup will be in the first round, and we'll see how far they go. The Chicago Bulls, they're fourth right now in the East. Still gotta give them their credit. They 5-5 in their last 10. They had a lot of guys out, a lot of key guys out. They best defenders on the perimeter out. But regardless, they still been winning. Still got home court advantage to this point. Like I said, the Bulls is hard to judge because they have so many key pieces gone for a significant amount of time. Um, and they still been pretty much beating anybody that they can to continue to win and almost on pace to clinching them a playoff berth, something that they haven't done in years. And we'll see, what position they'll be in once the season is over and see what matchup and team they get when the playoffs start. And we can go from there when the playoffs start. So the Boston Celtics, they've been one of the hottest teams, 8-2 in their last 10. They're 40-27. Tatum's been hot. Guy's been defending a little bit better. Still a little sloppy, still a little ugly when they do play. But at the end of the day, we'll take it at this point. My Celtics been pretty inconsistent all season, clunky, crazy, dumb, and idiotic, just like the season has been for pretty much everybody. But to see my Celtics fifth and have the ability to move up more within the next month, as a Celtics fan, I'm happy. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. I like our confidence. I like our weapons that we have all season, even before the trade deadline to now. But, we're where we need to be. We'll see what happens in the playoffs with the Celtics. The Cavaliers, they had a lot of injuries. They made some trades, and those guys got injured. They had guys that stepped up, and they got injured. So they traded those guys for guys that's injured, which really make no sense. But it's reality for the Cavaliers. And Darius Garland had a breakout all-star season along with Jared Allen. Evan Mobley is probably the rookie of the year going into the last month, which will be April. And they pretty much stuck through. They defended well. Their defense has fell off a little bit. Their offense has fell off a little bit. But this is a young team that nobody really expected them to be a playoff team anyway. Nobody expected them to defend well. Nobody expected them to fit well. Nobody expected them to play well. Nobody even expected them to win 40-plus games, which they're on pace to do. Nobody synced it. Nobody believed it. Even they didn't coming into this year. And now it's reality. They 2 games away from winning 40, and then they can also win more as there's still a month left to go. So the Cavaliers have proved me wrong so far. If anything, they will, but still don't look at them as a contender or a great team, but still a successful season for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I got to give them their credit on that. The Toronto Raptors, I thought they'd be a playoff caliber team, which 7th is, and it's still in the play-in range. So none of these spots are locked in at this point until the play-in tournament is over. But I like their size. I like their length. I like their coach. I like how they play hard. I like that they scrappy. They had a lot of roster changes and a lot of guys in and out too. Still don't know what they're trying to do offensively some games because some of their pieces been out throughout the season. But if they do make the playoffs, they're going to be competitive. They're going to be respectable. And now we just have to see if they do after the play-in tournament, is done since they're 7th at this point. Brooklyn Nets, 34-33. They've been up and down. They was at the top of the East for the first 2 months. And then they just been going through chaos. And they look ugly. They look terrible. I still think they do. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Kyrie and Kevin Durant finally played 2 games in a row, which they did win their last 2. But, I'm still kind of out on this team. Ben Simmons still hasn't played. I still don't like their role players. Guys been in and out with this team. They still don't defend well. They don't play hard. They don't care enough. And sometimes you even wonder, do they even like playing with each other? Or are they just a collection of talent that's just together on the roster, just playing basketball until the season is over? I don't know. But if you have a team that don't really care, don't really play hard, And it seems like they don't even care about the season. It's kind of hard to get behind them. They should be a playoff team, but, I don't have them as a contender this year. The Charlotte Hornets, 32-35, they're in the play-in tournament. They had a lot of key pieces out like a lot of other teams. They still go out there and compete. They still go out there and try hard. Miles Bridges had his best season this year. LaMelo Ball has been an all-star this year. Gordon Hayward has missed majority of the year. Terry Rozier has been, hit or miss this year. He has big games and have a lot of mediocre ones. And they don't defend well and they don't score consistently or shoot the ball well. So, they pretty much made the best out of this season. They still in the play-in tournament, so we'll see how that goes for them. The Atlanta Hawks are 10th. They're 31-34. They just been a mess. I haven't liked John Collins this year. I haven't liked Clint Capella this year. You know what? I don't even like this team this year. And I ain't going to blame Nate McMillan. A lot of this team is just a lot of players that's trying to figure out what they're going to be for this roster. Last year, they was in line. They knew what they wanted to run. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew how they wanted to play. This year, I don't know what they doing. Guys been in and out. Guys can't make a shot. Guys been breaking everything. Defense has been terrible like it's been the last couple years. But the offense just haven't been clicking. Like I said, last year they was on the same page, pick and roll, shooting. Trae Young was getting to the paint, slicing up, finding guys open. The shot just ain't falling this year. The defense has been worse than ever compared to years ago. Even last year, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and their defense was solid. This year, it's just been terrible. And Trae Young has looked good for the most part. He's an all-star. He's going to be an all-NBA player. But that's really about it. The highlight of this season is just Trae Young. And just a bunch of guys that's been in and out, breaking shots, not playing defense, and just not caring as much as they did last year. It seemed like last year everybody was on a mission to play well and try hard. This year, everybody just doing whatever they want to do. And Trae Young is just going out there, putting up numbers, and that's about it. But they are in the play-in tournament, so we'll see if they make the playoffs when the play-in tournament is over. The Wizards, Bradley Beal is out for the season. I'm out on Porzingis. He is a big body. He is still a starter in this league. No longer an all-star to me. No longer a franchise-changing player. Not a great fit with Bradley Beal. They shouldn't bring him back next year for this particular team. But they still got solid role players that's still competing and doing whatever they can for the most part. Once Bradley Beal was out for the season, their best player, they was pretty much done to me as a competitive team in the Eastern Conference. So, we'll see what happens with them. The New York Knicks, they're starting to build it back up, but they're 3-7 in their last 10. I still don't like this team compared to last year. They don't defend. They don't score as well as they used to. They don't care either as much as they used to. They changed their lineup throughout the season. 1 minute Kemba started and Fournier, and guys just been interchanging stupidity throughout the roster. Last year they had cohesiveness. They believed in their players. They played hard. They played tough. They competed. They fought. And they came at you. They had an identity. They had a play style. They had a grit. They had a grind. They had a fight in them. This year they just hooping. And that's pretty much about it for this New York Knicks team. They literally lost everything that made them special. Everything that made them a team that people respected is all gone. It seemed like as soon as they added new pieces and changed up some things, it worked for the first 2 months. Then after that, it seemed like they said, screw it. And that's pretty much the New York Knicks season in a nutshell. The Indiana Pacers, they got off to a rough start, like I said. A lot of guys was injured. A lot of guys, just didn't play for the most part. Then guys got healthier, and they just couldn't dig themselves out of a hole to the point where they got rid of Sabonis and Karis LeVert and other guys. Just because what's the point of having a roster that don't fit or play well and literally wasn't a competitive team in the Eastern Conference anyway. So I understood why you would get rid of talent that don't really fit, mesh, or play well together and was losing anyway. You might as well shake it up, change it. We'll see how they build this roster the next couple seasons. They got, Halliburton in the Sabonis trade. Like I said, I'm more of a role player on Halliburton. I like Malcolm Brogdon, but they're going to have to move him. Or, at the end of the day, if they want to keep both of them, they can try it out for a longer period of time next season. And, whatever they do with this roster, we'll see how they put it together. We'll see how they build it in the offseason and next year. But, this is a team that looks completely different than how this team started, but they terrible either way. The Detroit Pistons, they 6-4 in their last 10. A lot of people said, K trying to win games. They still in the same spot. They won a couple more games, but they haven't moved up in the standing or moved down. So it hasn't really changed their draft ranking at this point. But the Detroit Pistons been terrible. K been in and out, but he's been a little bit more healthier lately. Been pretty good for a rookie, like I thought. Rebounding is there, scoring is there, assists is there, the big performances is there, the numbers are there. The talent and team that's necessary to win ain't there. And that's why I had the Pistons being a terrible team coming into this year, and they pretty much have been. They're 18-48, a terrible year for the Pistons. But Isaiah Stewart looks solid. Sadiq Bey looks solid. Jeremy Grant been out for a big period of time this season, but they look a lot better now. Marvin Bagley, I'm still out on him, but he looks better than he did in Sacramento. I don't think he is the long-term solution at power forward center for the Pistons. That's for them to figure out. We'll see what they do in the draft. We'll see what they do in free agency. But other than that, the Pistons have been pretty bad. The Orlando Magic, they ran back into the problem that they had before. Now guys are coming back healthy. Now guys are ready to compete. The problem is the season is over a month from now, and they're going to be eliminated from the playoffs within the next 2 weeks. So, like I said with the Magic, this is a season where you see what the young talent is going to be, who you want to keep, who you want to develop, who you want to build around type of season. Cole Anthony looks better than he did last year. Jalen Suggs had some stints this year when he looked good for the most part. Jonathan Eisen hasn't returned this year. Mo Bamba looked good for about 3 weeks, and then he was garbage for the rest of the year. Wendell Carter looks like their starter at the center position, but we'll see what they do in the draft and then free agency. But for the most part, this team has a lot of problems in the future because they got to get rid of a lot of these players. This is a find yourself season where you find who fits and who doesn't fit, and then you build a roster in the future to get back to the playoffs and then try to get back to NBA Finals and hopefully can win the championship. But like I said, I knew that coming into this year. I knew they wasn't going to play defense. I knew they wasn't going to make shots. I knew they was going to be terrible. But this year was about finding who you want to keep, who's going to be an integral part of your team in the future. And that's the season that Orlando pretty much had. The Phoenix Suns, I expected them to be 2-1. Just like last year. Last year they finished number 2 in the entire NBA. This year they on pace to finish number 1. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Chris Paul missed a significant amount of time. DeAndre Ayton has looked pretty good. Looked better in the playoffs last year, but he also looked pretty good the last 3 games. This is a solid team. This team is going to be based off championship or bust expectations. When you go from being one of the best teams last year to second best team in the entire season and the Western Conference champion and going up 2-0 in the NBA Finals and not reaching the goal of winning the championship, that definitely should be your only goal this year, as you already been the number 1 team in the NBA for a couple months. And on top of that, you failed your goal of not winning the championship. Their only goal should be finishing number 1 and winning the title. Anything other than that is a failure for the Phoenix Suns, and that's fair, and that's the respect that they deserve. And if they don't win, they failed their goal. And we'll see what they do in free agency. Memphis, they climbed all the way up to number 2. They had a good spot at the beginning of the year, fell down a little bit. Injuries and chaos happened like every other team. But they climbed all the way back up when it mattered most, and that's when the playoffs seedings are locked in. And right now, they number 2. They only a half game above Golden State at the recording of this video. Ja Morant still looks fantastic. The best he has ever played in his entire career has been these last 2 months. Desmond Bane has looked pretty solid. Jaren Jackson, I don't have him as Defensive Player of the Year this year, but he's in the conversation. He has looked pretty solid. He looked better now the last 2 months compared to 3 months ago with Ja, Desmond, and the other guys on this roster. I do like the Steven Adams addition. He looked a little washed the first 2 months. Don't look that like that as much the last two, which is good because they playing their best basketball and they're healthier than ever compared to the first 2 months. And now we just have to see. And Dylan Brooks should come off the bench. He's going to be a spark plug off the bench and, a pest too. We'll see, what this team does in the playoffs. Golden State are getting, they will be getting Draymond Green back next Monday, which is good for them. They can win without him like they have done all season. But, the healthier they are, the better their chances are in the playoffs. They have a lot of talent, have a lot of wings, have a lot of guards, have a lot of scoring, have a lot of dynamic. They have a lot of dynamics to their team, whether it's cutters, shooters, screen setters, floor spacers. They have everything they need to be a competitive team in the Western Conference. We'll see what they do in the playoffs, but to me, they're going to be one of the best teams like they've been all season. I know that Steph has slid a little bit offensively, but this team is way more talented than the teams that he had 2 seasons ago. So we got to judge them accordingly as a team compared to just Steph just falling off. Other than that, the team has still been pretty much fine to me. Not going to win every game. They playing better competition than they did the first 3 months of the season. Like I said then, and they've been losing accordingly. So we'll see what they are when the playoffs start. We'll see how the matchups are for them, and we'll see what they do when they matter most, which is the playoff time. For Utah, they've been pretty good this year. For the most part, not much to say on them. They had injuries and chaos like every other team, but Donovan Mitchell looks explosive. He looks ready. Rudy Gobert in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation as always. The shooters are making shots. They look a little ugly sometimes. It looks like they lost a little bit of their offensive focus that they had the first 2 months of the season. They got a little relaxed, got a little comfortable. Their defense fell off, compared to the first 2 months. But it's an 82-game season. They lost their focus. They lost a little bit of their identity. But for the most part, they still a contender. They don't look as good as they did the first 2 months or last year, but, that's the Utah Jazz problem. Dallas, they look better. Luka looks better. And that's a result, of him being a great player. I got him all NBA first team this year, too, for the third straight season before being even 25, which really never happens. But, they got a top 5 seed again. Top 6 seed again. We'll see what they do. They got ball handlers. They got the same, personnel shooter-wise, which is streaky. They got guys that are hot and cold defensively, too. They defense supposedly supposed to be better, but it really just depends on the matchups in the playoffs. To me, when I look at this roster, I still look at them as second round exit at best as a team, but we still have to see when the playoffs seeding is locked in where they have finished. But they're fun. They're exciting when they're making their threes and Luka's making his shots and keeping guys involved, killing people on double team traps. And even if he's driving, he's finding guys for dunks, shooting for the passing for the shooters. So to me, I pretty much like this Mavericks team like I did the last couple seasons. I don't really think much has changed for them. They did get rid of Porzingis, who hasn't been a huge factor for them in the playoffs. Maybe Bertans, maybe Dinwiddie, maybe even Jalen Brunson can be better for them in the playoffs. But to me, they still looking like a second round exit at the best. At best, Denver Nuggets, they look the same. It's going to be matchup dependent. They're tied right now with Dallas for the 5th seed, so we'll see where they finish. Jokic has been MVP. Jokic dominant, obliterating anything and everything that's in front of them and keeping guys involved. I haven't really liked their role players as much. They haven't really got They haven't really got consistency from any of their players. Lineups have changed. Defensive schemes have changed. Their play has changed, but the winning hasn't changed as they have still been one of the best teams in the Western Conference with Michael Porter and Jamal Murray being out. And that's something that people say, well, should they blow it up? Should they give up the season? Jokic came back. They plugged guys around him, and they just kept on trucking. That's what Denver has been doing the last 5 years at this point. Minnesota Timberwolves, they 38-29 right now. They won their last 6. They 8-2 in their last 10. Anthony Edwards hasn't been that dominant player that people thought coming into this year. I didn't believe this was a year for him to break out, but the team has did better than ever. As they actually is a playoff team this year. Towns was an all-star again. He is going to be an all-NBA center to me. Being dominant on the boards, hitting his threes, posting up. Guys like Malik Beasley have been inconsistent. D'Angelo Russell has been inconsistent. But they won enough games. They defend good enough to be a playoff team. And they role players have been hot and cold. And, the biggest problem to me with Minnesota is you just don't know who's going to step up. I said that all year. It might be Towns night. It might be Anthony Edwards. It might be D'Angelo Russell. You don't know who's going to close the game, who's going to take over the game, who they're going to run their offense through the last 5 minutes. That's problems that they still, to me, haven't figured out throughout the whole season. Maybe they figured out in the future, but they are a playoff team right now that's better than what they've been before. And they'll take it. To me, that's a good thing. The 8th seed right now is the Clippers. They're 35-33. I like this team, like I said before. Not going to go too much in depth with them, but Kawhi Leonard may return. Paul George may return. I still don't look at them as a contender at that point. But what I will say is Norman Powell hasn't returned either at the point of this video. But Reggie Jackson has looked pretty good. Zubac has looked pretty good. Marquise Morris have looked pretty good. Luke Kennard has looked pretty good. This been a pretty solid, resilient team for the most part. They are 7-3 in their last 10, and you gotta give credit to this team. They didn't give up. They didn't quit. They kept fighting, and I didn't expect them to be at this point without Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. But reality is, they're still there. We'll see what happens after the play-in tournament. But right now, they got the 8th spot. The Lakers have looked pretty terrible all year. Anthony Davis is still out. LeBron has been an all-NBA caliber player for the most part this season. Guys in the lineup have changed throughout the season. I don't really like none of their role players. I don't really like their defense. I haven't really liked how they played all year as a team. And Russ has looked pretty solid for the most part the last 3 months. He's been benched. He's been crucified. He even had looked crazy. Even went for 30 and they still lost the last game. This team has been a disaster. They have been ugly. They have been terrible. Not too much credit to give them this year. And they are already 9 games below 500, which shows you how bad they have been at this point. They're 2-8 in their last 10 to continue to further that point. But they're still 9th, which means they're in the play-in tournament. And that still gives them possible eligibility for the playoffs. That's the best they can really hope for at this point. The New Orleans Pelicans, they're 27-39. They lost their last 3. They're 5-5 in their last 10. CJ has looked like the guard that we have been accustomed to seeing, scoring less than what people thought, but still been playmaking, scoring through the mid-range in threes like he usually does. Brandon Ingram has looked better the last 3 weeks, in my personal opinion, but they've been losing regardless. Still don't really like their role players. Still don't really like this team. Still don't like them winning to be in the play-in, finishing in a spot 8th or 7th to make the playoffs. Like I said, the Pelicans was crap this whole year. They crap now. Not really a surprise. Even after the CJ trade, I said they was going to be crap, and they still are. Like I said, they 5-5 in their last 10. They lost their last 3 at this point, and they're 27-39, which is an absolutely terrible season. Still to this point, even after the trade deadline. The Portland Trail Blazers, they're 25-40. They lost their last 6. They're 4-6. In their last 10. This is Chauncey Billups' first time coaching this team. Dame is out for the season. Simons has been showing out. All their key players either been traded or out for the season. They have a lot of young players that they can evaluate right now to see if they like them or not. We'll see what they do in the off season. This is a pretty much concluded season. They're going to play guys, try things out, see what works, what doesn't work, who they want to keep, what direction they want to go. This season is pretty much done for the Blazers. Same for the San Antonio Spurs. Once they traded DeMar DeRozan, once they lost DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, and it was borderline a playing team anyway, like they are right now. Um, you know, this is a team that's consolidating right now. They have a lot of guards, they have a lot of forwards. They have to see which ones they want to keep, which ones they don't, so they can build an actual team that can get them back to the playoffs and build upon that and try to get back to their championship ways, which they are far away from now. Sacramento Kings. De'Aaron Fox has looked better the last month, which is a good thing. People say, man, they made a mistake getting rid of Halliburton. No, Fox has been pretty much better than Halliburton his entire career and still to this point. So now you got De'Aaron Fox. Now you got a big that can actually finish, pass, set screens, and do everything Marvin Bagley couldn't do. And now you have that. You still got Barnes and other pieces on this roster. I still want to see them build a team that fits. This is a play it out season after the trade deadline. See what works, what doesn't work, what pieces fit with Fox and Sabonis, and then you can figure that out in the off season. But you still have a month to try and fail what works and doesn't work for this team that's going to be building with Fox and Sabonis in the future. So we'll see what they do in the offseason. The Oklahoma City Thunder have been one of the worst teams in the NBA, like I thought. They haven't really made no moves in the trade deadline. They have a lot of young talent. Shea has looked better the last 3 months to me, but the team has just been absolutely terrible. Still no shooting, no spacing. Still no quality NBA starters or players on this roster. This team is basically a bunch of guys that are prospects trying to find what they're going to be, what they might be, what they potentially could be. And that's all this season was for the Thunder. Anybody that was a Thunder fan already knew that coming into this year. They have a lot of picks in this draft coming up. We'll see who they decide to add to this roster. But, they can figure out also who they want to add in free agency this summer. This has been a terrible year as expected from the Thunder. And same for the Rockets, the last team. Their one game win was against the Lakers. They're 2-8 in their last 10, which means they won before they even beat the Lakers. They're 17-49. I thought they'd be terrible. I thought they'd be bad. Anytime you're starting a team with Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, Christian Wood, and whoever they start throughout the whole season, which has changed, you knew they'd be terrible defensively. You knew they'd be terrible offensively. You knew a lot of those guys wouldn't really to play at an NBA winning level coming into this year. When most of your team is young, inexperienced, undeveloped, and really don't have go-to skill sets at this point of their career, you're going to lose. If you can't score, you don't have go-to guys, you don't have consistent players, and you ain't going to defend at all, that's a recipe for disaster and failure, and that's what the Rockets have been from basically the start of the season to now. And now we'll just see who they add to this roster in the draft, who they decide to keep in free agency, who they decide to take a gamble on in free agency and in the draft, and we'll see what they do next year. So to me, the season is pretty much over at this point. Probably one more rundown before, the play-in start to pretty much gauge what these teams are going to be. Still going to have my playoff predictions when the teams are set after the play-in tournament. And to me, chaotic, stupid, idiotic, one of the dumbest, probably one of the worst seasons in NBA history, but it's over in a month. So if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. If you watched it, you watched it. A lot of drama, a lot of idiocracy, a lot of stupidity. To me, this was one of the worst seasons in NBA history. But on to the playoffs. All we can do is hope and pray that it'll be better than what this crappy season has been, which is possible. The playoffs are different, bigger stage, championship is on the line. Maybe that'll motivate guys. Maybe that'll get guys ready to go. And maybe we can see better basketball because of it. Until then, I'll see y'all later. Quinn Wade, basketball analysis signing out. Enjoy y'all day. Enjoy the night. Hopefully, I see y'all tomorrow. The rundown is back. I haven't made one in about a month, but now y'all got one now. So do y'all thing. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis signing out.